All right. So, today I am going to be talking a little bit about Minecraft and how Minecraft can be used as a way to explore history. I mean, if you think about it, Minecraft is sort of the perfect vessel for exploring history through an architectural lens, as one of the main components of Minecraft is the fact that you can build, and there's an emphasis on creativity. The sky's the limit with what you can build in Minecraft. Um, Ironically, one of the reasons why Minecraft is such a good way of exploring history is because that most of its features and items and uh, blocks and whatever are devoid of any culture. What I mean by this is, for example, if we look at a material such as, I don't know, obsidian. If I place this obsidian block down, none of the features of this obsidian block are particularly like references a particular culture, right? This is just an obsidian block. This is what this is. There's not really any cultural inspiration for this obsidian block. It just is what it is. A similar thing can be said with something like cocoa beans. Uh, One could argue that, oh, cocoa beans is something that we associate with Mesoamerican cultures. And while you would be right, cocoa beans are just a plant that grows naturally in the world. And the reason why we ascribe it to Mesoamerican cultures is because geographically, that's where the intersection of cocoa beans and Mesoamerican culture kind of happens. So, in my opinion, the fact that there are cocoa beans in Minecraft isn't really a reference to Mesoamerican culture in particular. It's a reference to the land, just something that happens regularly in nature. Now, I would like to talk a bit about the specific inspirations I had when it came to this particular build, which is vaguely an Aztec city. Now, the first source I would like to introduce is Townsend's book, Fifth Sun. And in that book, she references two cities, Teotihuacan and Tenochtitlan. And I'd like to talk about Teotihuacan first. So, in her book, she first mentions that the city of Teotihuacan was sort of built in between these two pyramids, and that's where I got the inspiration from to build these two Aztec structures. And in between these two villages are a bunch of houses, courtyards, pavilions, and a sort of grid like structure, or a grid like road, rather. And a prominent feature of Teotihuacan and a lot of Aztec cities is the fact that there are prominent markets. And that's what this is. And I think this market represents why Minecraft can be such a useful tool. It's because that all of a sudden players can now see, oh, these are the sorts of materials that the Aztecs traded with. We have stuff like obsidian, we have stuff like copper, we have stuff like honey, or even like corn or cocoa beans. And there are also pots, as the Aztecs were known for their impressive pottery skills. Another aspect of Teotihuacan in particular is the fact that it was built near an obsidian mine, and that is sort of represented here with these carts, you know, rolling into this city from, well, this massive waterfall. Don't mind the fact that this is a super flat world, or that there's this like big wall border here. This was just so I could build this city a bit easier. Just pretend that this is an obsidian mine and there are obsidian carts rolling towards the city. That's the power of Minecraft, is you can imagine whatever you want. So yeah, with builds like this market over here, players are able to educate others about the specific elements of whatever culture it is that they are trying to encapsulate. Now, another city that, oh, I forgot something. The aqueduct. This is a this is a build that was that I also was inspired from. That was also inspired from Townsend's book, and I will get back to it a little when we talk about some limitations of Minecraft, because this build was actually quite a headache to make. Now, the second city I would like to talk about is Tenochtitlan, and Townsend mentions a lot about Tenochtitlan's market. And in particular, she mentions how that there were slaves traded in these markets, but I did not want to portray that in Minecraft. And I think that goes to show that when it comes to Minecraft, you can be a little picky and choosy with what you portray with the so-called cultures that you build. And this is uh, in opposition to something like I don't know, Civilization games or whatever, where you're sort of limited to what the devs are telling you about these cultures. With Minecraft, you can create your own stories. You can omit whatever you'd like. You can include whatever you'd like to build your cultures. And in my case, I chose to omit the fact that there were slaves being sold at some of the Tenochtitlan markets, because that's not something that I am very comfortable portraying. Now, another source that I drew inspiration from was Shamalpahin's Annals of His Time. And that source in particular is quite interesting because it focuses a lot on the events that occurred when it focused a lot on the events. And another thing that's interesting about this source is the fact that it takes place significantly after Townsend's account. Annals of His Time takes place after the Spanish conquest, and that raises a question: is my build accurate? Because not only did I take inspiration from two cities, Tenochtitlan and Teotihuacan, but I also took inspiration from two distinct time periods. And so that raises the question, like, is my build accurate? Is my build sort of disingenuous? And to that, I think I would say that I don't think you can ever be 100% faithful in Minecraft. Oh, and by the way, before I forget, the aspects of Annals of His Time that I brought into this build, there are two very simple things. The fact that there are candles on the roofs of this temple, and the fact that there are bells. And in Annals of His Time, Shamalpahin mentions that the bells were rung whenever people were celebrating. So those were the only two things I drew inspiration from when it comes to that source in particular, were the candles and the bells. Now, I was going to say, I don't think you can ever be 100% faithful in Minecraft, though you can get close, because Minecraft actually has a lot of limitations. But these limitations are actually where you as the player can be creative. For an example is this aqueduct. The water in Minecraft is quite finicky, as it can only flow down a couple of blocks before you need to build down. And mathematically, what this means is that this aqueduct is a lot steeper than what it would actually be in real life. If that weren't the case, if water could flow horizontally for longer, I would have built this aqueduct lower down to the ground. And in fact, building this aqueduct lower is actually more accurate as to the aqueducts that were, when we compare it to the aqueducts that were in Teotihuacan. So that's a limitation right there as an example, just the mechanics of water. Another example of a limitation in Minecraft is the fact that obviously not every single material found on planet Earth is represented in Minecraft. Not every food source in Minecraft is not every food source in real life is represented in Minecraft. I'm fortunate in the fact that I have many mods installed, so I do get things like corn, and I do get materials such as jade or whatever, and that raises a point that Minecraft is kind of like the perfect game to mod, right? Whatever limitations that you find in vanilla Minecraft, you can sort of fill in with mods if you so choose. But I think there's value in working within the space of the limitations that you have. For example, when I was researching what items the Aztecs traded with one another and with cultures outside of their immediate locale, I came across guavas and turquoise. Now, in vanilla Minecraft and with all of the mods that I have, turquoise and guavas don't exist. But not to worry, I have turquoise right here and a guava right here. These aren't actual turquoises and guavas. Um, this is a diamond and this is a melon. But with the power of creativity and with the power of what I like to say, the power of I say so, this is a turquoise and this is a guava, and you can't tell me otherwise. I can just rename items to whatever I so choose. And so you can see my market sells guavas and turquoises, along with other materials like jade and corn and whatnot. Another limitation of Minecraft is the fact that while Minecraft is very good at telling stories through its architecture, it's not the best at recounting events. Annals of his time specifically focused a lot on the events of what happened during that time period, and I had a lot of trouble bringing that into this build. As I said previously, the only features I could really the only distinct features I could really draw upon were the candles on the roofs of, in that excerpt, the palaces and the bells. Now, theoretically, you could just go into multiplayer and sort of recreate historical scenes or whatever with your friends, and that could be a good way of retelling events in Minecraft. Um, but if you wanted to tell the stories of like civilizations or whatever, and like populate this world with just populate this world, I guess, with real players, that would take a lot of effort. Like that would take it would take thousands of players to sort of fill up this build, especially if I upscaled it. Um, and so even within multiplayer Minecraft, it's kind of difficult to retell sort of grand and big events, though with smaller scale events, that could definitely happen. Continuing on the theme with sort of inaccuracies and limitations, I would like to introduce Josephine Quinn's How the World Made the West as my final source. Now, Josephine Quinn talks a little bit about problematic ways of viewing history in her book. And I think Minecraft exacerbates a lot of these problematic ways of viewing history. For example, Minecraft is what I consider to be like Minecraft builds in particular are what I consider to be static. Like there's no real movement in time when it comes to Minecraft builds. This build in particular is sort of frozen in time, right? You can't see any like weathering of the stones or whatever, or like the crops can grow, but that's pretty much it. There's no real obvious passage. There's no real obvious way that you can recount a passage of time, a meaningful passage of time in Minecraft. And that proves to be a problem because it can lead to the notion that certain societies are static and like this, for example, with my example with the Aztecs, if I just showed some random person this build, they might think that, oh, this is all the Aztecs were. There's no diversity whatsoever. Like, when I think of the Aztecs now, this is what I think of and nothing else. But that isn't true, right? The Aztecs, uh, throughout time and throughout space, like that was an expansive culture. And the problem with portraying it in Minecraft, a static game, is the fact that there's no really movement in time that is happening, and that can lead people to think of cultures and history as very monotonous and very one note almost. There's there's no real teachings on there's no real teachings on like how the Aztecs were inspired to build like this, right? That's something that could potentially be interesting to learn about, but Minecraft does a really poor job, I think, of explaining this type of history. Really, it excels at explaining history through architecture. And while that is fine, I think that a more comprehensive view of history in the lens of Minecraft can only be achieved if Minecraft builds are accompanied with another form of learning, with more context, if you will. Now that I've talked about all of that, yeah, that is pretty much all I would like to say for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you learned something today, either about Aztec culture or how Minecraft can be a really good way of teaching history, even though it has some limitations. And I hope that I taught you all how to sort of rectify and make sure that these limitations aren't too problematic and don't get into the way of learning history in a fun way. So yeah, that's all for me today.